What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was Reborn as Dr. Doom Part 6. Now, let's begin. Upon departing from the Primarch's birthing chamber, I escorted them to one of the rooms within my laboratory facility that contained appropriate attire. I subsequently instructed everyone to get dressed. Upon their arrival, I escorted them to the medical laboratory, where I conducted a series of fundamental tests to ensure that none of them had any underlying issues. They did not. Nonetheless, I needed to confirm. As their creator, I hold the responsibility for them. Once that was completed, I escorted them to one of the facility's training rooms to observe their extraordinary abilities in action and to gain a better understanding of the additional and unique powers each individual received from the Compound D. The process required a total of 2 hours, however, it was a productive 2 hours. I have successfully identified the unique power sets of each Primarch. The African-American male first achieved self-sustained flight, along with heat vision, X-ray vision, and self-sustenance. Additionally, the 7-footer has achieved self-sustained flight and self-sustenance. However, he has also evolved into a biochemical fusion reactor. This indicates his ability to absorb, generate, and manipulate energy. He increases in strength as he endures greater physical damage, creating a character similar to Grant Emerson, Damage from DC Comics. Excellent. Third, the individual with blonde hair possesses telekinesis and telepathy at a level recognized in this world as Omega-class mutants. In the company of notable figures such as Jean Grey and Emma Frost. The green-skinned woman possesses abilities in pheromone production, toxikinesis, toxin immunity, and chlorokinesis. It appeared that her abilities were also connected to magic, based on my observations. I will certainly begin her training in the mystic arts at the earliest opportunity. The red-skinned woman is now able to adjust her size at will, achieving heights of up to 25 feet or dimensions that are only discernible through a microscope. It appears that all 5 of my Primarchs have been endowed with remarkable and varied abilities. A fact that I appreciate, since I wish to ensure that none of them, or any future Primarchs I create, are identical. I seek diversity. Such an approach fosters excellence and the highest standards. That is the reason I initially created the Primarchs. If I were solely interested in uniformity, I would have remained with my Doombots. Regarding my reference to the Primarchs by their physical features, it is due to the absence of proper names for any of them. I am in the process of rectifying this matter. Everyone, please gather around, I instructed my Primarchs, who were distributed throughout the room. Upon my call, they promptly ceased their activities and arranged themselves in front of me. All your medical tests and physical evaluations appear to be in good order, I informed them. Now that those matters are settled, I believe it is appropriate to assign you all proper names, I stated. I subsequently focused my attention on the African-American Primarch. When I performed the action, he kneeled. From this moment forward, you will be referred to as Zod, I informed him. Considering his abilities, I believe it is one of the most fitting names for him. Zod responded, "Thank you, my Emperor. I hereby make this declaration in this moment. All who oppose you, or those you instruct me to confront, shall submit before Zod, just as they once submitted before Naruto," he stated. "I will hold you to that, Zod. I have provided my response." I subsequently directed my attention towards the 7-foot Primarch. "Your designation will be Thrag." "Thank you, Emperor Naruto," he responded. Thrag subsequently knelt before me. Once he completed his action, I redirected my attention to the blonde. "You will be referred to as Thaddeus." "Thank you, my Emperor," Thaddeus responded. He also then knelt before me. Following his actions, I turned my attention to the woman with green skin. "I have decided to name you Ivy," I informed her, given that she possesses identical abilities and resembles Poison Ivy from DC Comics. "Thank you, Emperor Naruto," Ivy responded. She also then knelt. "Only one remains." I directed my attention towards the woman with red skin. "I hereby designate you as Katma," I informed her. She closely resembles Katma Tui from DC Comics. Ivy bears a resemblance to Poison Ivy, neither of whom I intentionally created. "I am serious. This occurrence was entirely coincidental. As you have commanded, my Emperor," Katma stated. She subsequently knelt down. All 5 of my Primarchs are now positioned before me in a kneeling stance. I can certainly acclimate to this. I subsequently executed a gesture with my left hand. Please rise. I instructed them. Upon my arrival, they all stood together in unison. What is our next move, my emperor? Thaddeus inquired. At this moment, all of you will stay in this facility for the time being to better acclimate to the world around you, I informed them. Which expert will assist you? I will do that, Brainiac stated confidently. The Primarchs are already aware of him. At present, I am attending to certain matters in New York, USA, and will remain here until the 1st of April. That is when I will officially return to Latveria. Once I am back, we can begin to make significant progress. Until then, I kindly ask that you remain on standby. Do you have any further questions? No one voiced their opinion. Thank you for your time. Please remember that if you face any significant challenges, I am available to assist you at a moment's notice. I informed them. I subsequently departed from my laboratory facility and made my way back to my office at the New York Embassy. I am very pleased with the outcome of my first Primarchs. This day has been remarkable. March 18, 2008. Susan Storm paced back and forth across the floor of the waiting room, her brow furrowed in concentration. The white heels she wore produced a distinct clacking sound on the floor as she walked. Please, Susan, you need to be mindful of your energy, Naruto advised, as he was present in the waiting room as well. He was seated on the sofa in one of the rooms, displaying a composed expression on his face. The reason for their companionship. They were awaiting their turn to address the audience at a press conference organized by Naruto to deliver a significant announcement. This also pertained to the Fantastic Four, who appointed Susan as their representative for today's event. Halting in her movement, Susan directed her gaze towards Naruto. Before she had the opportunity to speak, a knock resonated at the door. They are prepared for both of you, Jessica announced from outside. Acknowledged. Thank you, Jessica, Naruto responded. He subsequently rose and approached Susan. He subsequently extended his left arm to her. Susan Storm, would you do me the honor of allowing me to escort you? He inquired. Very well, Susan muttered. She accomplished this while maintaining a pleasant demeanor. Linking her arm with Naruto's, they left the room and proceeded outdoors. They then proceeded to a makeshift stage that had been established directly in front of the Latverian embassy. The area was presently filled with reporters and news personnel, along with numerous civilians. All individuals focused their attention on Susan and Naruto as soon as they made their entrance. The duo disregarded the audience as they took their places on stage in front of the podium, where a microphone was positioned. Upon completion, Naruto gently tapped on it. This rendered all voices in the vicinity inaudible. Upon observing this, Naruto acknowledged with a nod. He subsequently repositioned his finger away from the microphone and addressed it directly. I appreciate that, he stated. Welcome, everyone. Many of you are already familiar with my identity due to my activities over the past few years. However, for those who may not know me, I am Naruto von Regnum, the head of state and king of the nation known as Latveria. He stated. The esteemed individual accompanying me is undoubtedly familiar to many of you. Susan Storm, also known as the Invisible Woman, is a distinguished member of the Fantastic Four. Upon hearing her name announced, Susan smiled and acknowledged the crowd with a wave, generating enthusiasm from them. After a moment of contemplation, Naruto proceeded to speak once more. Okay. With the introductions out of the way, let Susan and I explain the reason we call you all here today. It's to talk about the future, specifically the future of the next generation. You see, when I was a young boy growing up in Latveria, I did not have the tools nor the resources available to me to match my potential. I had to struggle and go through many trials and tribulations to get the tools and resources I needed to reach my full potential. But by then I was basically an adult. One who, not to brag or anything, has made quite something of himself. But despite my many achievements, I can't forget my past. I always wondered what I could have become if I had the tools and resources I needed to reach my potential during my youth. That's one of the reasons I created the Werner Academy in my home country of Latveria. And why I am here, standing before you all today to announce the creation of an organization that is specifically geared towards helping the next generation achieve their full potential, and then some, like I never had the opportunity to do. Its name. The Future Foundation. Naruto spoke. He then stepped back, allowing Susan to assume her position in front of the podium and the microphone. The Future Foundation is a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting underprivileged youth in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, commonly referred to as STEM. The foundation will provide grants for approved projects submitted by these young individuals, and in certain instances, scholarships will also be available. This initiative has the full backing of the Fantastic Four, who are collaborating with our esteemed colleague Naruto von Regnum to bring this vision to fruition. As Naruto eloquently stated, many individuals lack the same resources and opportunities as others. The Fantastic Four, alongside Naruto, aims to contribute to bridging that gap. Susan articulated. Immediately after she concluded her remarks, the audience responded with a mix of applause and inquiries, which Naruto permitted Susan to manage. He was occupied enjoying the successful execution of yet another one of his ideas. The Future Foundation has now been established. This would provide Naruto with access to a variety of intelligent and skilled individuals. Numerous individuals were certainly poised to become characters from Marvel. However, he was also aware that there would be numerous individuals who were not. However, this enhancement further improved Naruto's perspective. Given the access to considerable untapped and unknown potential, he was aware that those bothering him would not appreciate it. One of the numerous reasons he engaged the Fantastic Four with his foundation. Considering their esteemed status, widespread popularity, and the respect they command within the scientific community, thanks to Sue and Richards, it would be challenging for anyone to undermine the foundation with their involvement, as it may attract undesirable attention. Once again, everything has unfolded as intended for Naruto. Susan ultimately reached out to Naruto. After completing his initial remarks, he returned to the podium to address several questions of his own. Following his actions, he and Susan exited the stage and re-entered the embassy. Following this, Naruto guided Susan to a sitting room. At that moment, Jessica was delivering a tray that held 2 glasses alongside a bottle of scotch. "Thank you, Jessica," Naruto expressed to her. "Certainly," Jessica responded. She subsequently granted her an excuse, Naruto noticing Susan's jealousy as she did. This individual. Naruto contemplated. "Susan, it is unnecessary for you to feel such jealousy towards Jessica," Naruto stated. Upon his action, Susan swiftly turned her head to face him. "What? I'm not jealous of her," she stated. Naruto responded with a deadpan expression. "Indeed. What is the reason for that icy glare you direct towards her whenever you find yourselves in the same room?" he inquired. "I do not engage in that," Susan stated firmly. "Is that the case?" "You do," Naruto responded, although it was not true. Susan did not engage in that behavior. He simply sought her acknowledgement of her jealousy. "I understand," Susan reflected. "I apologize, it's simply..." She paused. "What do you mean?" Naruto inquired. Approaching Susan. "Nothing. Really," Susan stated. She felt a sudden warmth spread across her face, due to Naruto's proximity. "I believe we both understand that it is inconsequential," Naruto responded. He then carefully took hold of Susan's face with his right hand and turned her head to face him. Their eyes met as a consequence. "Naruto, I believe it is time for me to leave," Susan stated with hesitation, even while perceiving the rhythm of her heartbeat in her ears. "No, please remain," Naruto stated. "As we both understand, this aligns with your true aspirations. It is also in accordance with my desires, Susan," he stated. Before Susan could express any further thoughts, Naruto leaned down and placed a gentle kiss on her lips. As this occurred, Susan encircled her hands around Naruto's neck, drawing him further into the kiss he had initiated without even being aware of it. They maintained that position for over a minute before Naruto ended the kiss. Susan was slightly panting as he did. "Do you still wish to proceed?" Naruto inquired. Susan responded, "No, does that indicate you are ready for what is about to unfold?" Naruto inquired. "Please be quiet, Naruto," Susan stated. She subsequently drew him closer and commenced another kiss. This resulted in Reed Richards never having another opportunity with Susan Storm. Not after she became familiar with some vitamin D from Naruto's now 10-inch long injection tool. In the emptiness of space, everything remained unchanged. Until it unexpectedly changed. a spacecraft emerged unexpectedly in the vast emptiness of space. The trajectory it was following placed it on a direct course with Earth. Perspective of Naruto. Beep beep. Before the beeping of my phone could persist, I disabled it using my technopathy. I then sat up in bed, taking care not to disturb Susan, who was lying right beside me. Given the workout I provided her earlier, I anticipate she will not be waking up until at least noon tomorrow. I wouldn't want to come across as boastful. Understood, I am somewhat. Ultimately, my experience with Susan exceeded all my expectations. Even if I had to consistently restrain myself. While Susan possesses extraordinary abilities, she lacks superhuman physical capabilities. I did not wish to be the cause of her demise through that means. Nonetheless, utilizing my technopathy, I accessed my phone and discovered that it was Brainiac reaching out. Yes. How may I assist you? I inquired of him through my technopathy. I apologize for interrupting the evening you have anticipated with the esteemed invisible woman Naruto, but this matter requires immediate attention. Our satellites have detected a craft of unknown origin entering Earth's atmosphere moments ago, and you specifically requested to be notified in such an event, Brainiac stated. Performing his duties with consistent excellence, I specifically requested that when I initially brought him online. Considering the numerous hostile alien species present in the Marvel Universe, I aim to be the first to be informed of their arrival on Earth. I have reservations about the ability of other players to manage the situation appropriately. I did indeed. Firstly, excellent work as always, my colleague. Additionally, has anyone else begun to engage in the craft? I have communicated. As soon as our satellites identified the signal, I initiated the process of masking the craft's signal from all external sensors, ensuring it remained detectable only by our systems. Before you inquire, I have already assessed its trajectory and designated the landing zone. It is conveniently situated adjacent to your location, as it is set to arrive in Essex County, New York, specifically, the Adirondack Mountains, Brainiac explained. Excellent work once again. Please prepare one of the hangar bays for containment within the laboratory facility and dispatch a contingent of Doombots to the designated landing location of the ships. I instructed Zod to meet me there. I aim to recover any items from the ship, provided it remains intact following its landing. I am requesting Zod's presence because I believe this presents an ideal opportunity to evaluate the performance of one of my Primarchs in a practical setting. Understood, my Emperor, Brainiac responded. We subsequently concluded our discussion. After we completed our task, I stood up and promptly changed into some comfortable attire. I ensured that Susan was settled comfortably in bed before I departed, to proceed and welcome our extraterrestrial guest, and assess whether I needed to take a more aggressive approach. Essex County, upstate New York Adirondack mountain range. Exiting my portal while fully armored, I proceeded to close it. At that moment, Zod descended onto the ground to my right. Equipped with the specially designed adamantium, vibranium battle armor intended for all my Primarchs. Image here. Shortly after he completed that task, the Doombots that Brainiac had designated for this mission arrived as well. Zod, I stated to him. Yes, my Emperor, he responded. How are you doing? I inquired. Zod responded, I am grateful for the opportunity to assist you in this endeavor. I assure you of my commitment to meet your expectations. I would advise against that, I replied. I subsequently employed my technopathy to communicate my directives to the Doombots, who delineated and managed the area, to ensure that no external elements were allowed entry and that nothing was permitted to exit. After completing that task, Zod and I proceeded to wait. Before I realized it, 30 minutes had elapsed before my sensors detected the craft approaching the position. As it did, both Zod and I turned our gaze toward it. Subsequently, it was monitored closely until it reached the coastline. Although the vessel did not experience a crash, it successfully made a landing. Upon its activation, I ascended into the air and proceeded to fly directly towards it, with Zod closely trailing behind me. We promptly arrived at the craft and landed outside of it. We subsequently prepared to address it. However, as soon as we took that action, my spider sense activated, and an instant later, I noticed a spear hurtling directly towards me from a previously obscured area of the ship. Given my skills, it was straightforward to capture. Upon doing so, I broke the spear in half, allowing it to drop to the ground. I raised my free hand to prevent Zod from making any movements, as I observed he was on the verge of doing so. Not yet, Zod. Let's wait and observe for a little longer, I instructed him. Yes, my emperor, he replied. He subsequently resigned from his position. As Zod emerged from the spacecraft, a figure stepped forward and directed their attention towards us. Upon their action, I immediately recognized that I was observing a female Sheer. Image here, verifying their presence in this reality for my understanding. This specific female Sheer appears to be quite familiar to me. I am unable to identify her. The female Sheer cast a disdainful glance between Zod and me. It appears that this planet possesses a level of sophistication that I had not anticipated. She stated with a sense of superiority. The planet you are referring to is recognized as Earth, and it falls under my guardianship. May I inquire about your identity and the purpose of your visit? I stated. How dare you address me in such a manner, you unsophisticated individual? The female Sheer retorted. An expression of anger suddenly crossed her face. It appears there is a lack of understanding regarding my identity. Allow me to clarify. I am Kalzi Naramani, a member of the esteemed Naramani family and the rightful heir to the throne of the Sheer Empire. With this knowledge, I trust you will approach our interactions with greater awareness. I am willing to overlook your previous misstep, but I must caution you. Any further indiscretion will have serious consequences. Do you comprehend? So she is Deathbird, I reflected. This clarifies the reason for her familiar appearance. My emperor, should I terminate the avian woman's life? Zod inquired. No, Zod, I replied. If her claims hold true, then her value matches that of her ship. Therefore, our objective is to capture her alive, I explained. As you say, my liege, Zod responded. Upon his portrayal of Deathbird, the expression became increasingly distorted. You are choosing to disregard my presence, she stated with intensity. Before Deathbird had the opportunity to speak further, I swiftly closed the gap between us, enveloped my left fist in electrical energy, and executed a precise punch directly to her abdomen. My attack made contact, sending a surge of electricity throughout the princess's body. She expressed her discomfort with a cry. However, she surprisingly remained conscious. Remaining aware, she seized my armor and started to claw at it. It caught me off guard to some extent. However, I recalled that she was not merely a Sheer, but also a Sheer mutant. A formidable warrior who commanded legions of starships and the esteemed members of the Sheer Imperial Guard. With that consideration in mind, I adjusted the voltage of my electric shock accordingly. Ag! Deathbird cries out in pain in response. But this time, she passed out. Once I was assured of this, I tossed her over my left shoulder like a sack of potatoes, allowing me to experience the sensation of her toned ass. Since ass is first class, and I'm an ass man at heart. After savoring the sensation of Deathbird butt, I spun around to confront Zod, who had approached us. Once he did, I snapped my fingers and opened a vortex beneath Deathbird's ship, transporting it to the hangar area. Brainiac had mentioned confinement protocols to me before. As soon as the spacecraft passed through, I closed the portal. Lead the Doombots on a search of the surrounding area to make sure we didn't miss anything. I'm going to deal with our prisoner, I had to tell Zod. He nodded as I spoke. Zod then took to the sky. As he did so, I opened a gateway and entered it. Preparing for a conversation with Deathbird, who is actually extremely attractive. Touching her buttocks actually made me uncomfortable. So yes, as Palpatine would say, it was a pleasant surprise. I think I might just stick my dick in crazy, especially when it will allow me to bring the Sheer Empire under my control. Man, tonight is just going better. Kalzi Naramani, widely known as Deathbird, slowly opened her eyes. Then, seconds later, she remembered everything that had occurred to her. This aggravated her. Before it could go any higher, Deathbird was drawn to a voice. Looks like you're finally awake. Turning her gaze in the direction of the voice, Deathbird noticed a man sitting in a chair in front of her. Who are you? And where am I? Deathbird demanded to know. In response to her questioning, the man in the chair merely smiled softly. Come now, you're saying you don't remember me from earlier. That hurts me a little, you know, especially given how up close and personal we got. He went on. When he did, The pieces clicked into place in Deathbird's head. "You?" Deathbird cried. "You're the one in the armor who attacked me earlier." The man responded, "Yes, that's me, and since I didn't do so earlier, properly allow me to introduce myself. My name is—" "You will pay for attacking me," Deathbird yelled out, interrupting Naruto. She then prepared to rush at him from the bed she was on. Before Deathbird could move an inch, Naruto raised his left hand and blasted her with numerous bolts of electricity. Ag! Stopping Deathbird in her tracks and causing her to cry out in pain. Which she continued to do as Naruto continued to bombard her with electricity. Until he thought she'd had enough, he eventually stopped attacking her. Deathbird twitched on the bed, and a small amount of smoke rose from her body. "So rude," Naruto remarked. "Now, as I was saying earlier, my name is Naruto von Regnum, the king and ruler of the Earth nation of Latveria, as well as the soon-to-be emperor of the planet Earth and the entire Sol system." He gave an explanation. "And you, my dear Kalzi Narimani, are now my prisoner. You dare imprison me? Back, worlder," Deathbird spit out. Naruto had attacked her with electrical bolts, causing mild paralysis, and she was unable to talk. "Do you have any idea of whom you're truly dealing with?" Naruto responded. "Yes, you've made that quite clear." "You dare patronize me, primitive," Deathbird exclaimed. "The paralysis has now completely worn off. I am the rightful heir to one of the most powerful empires the galaxy has ever seen or known. You keep saying that, and yet here you are on some primitive backwater world, as you put it. The captive of one of its natives. So what does that say about you?" Naruto interrupted. He gave a wicked grin. Deathbird turned bright red as he saw Naruto's grin. She then jumped out of her bed, claw-like fists pointed at Naruto's throat, prepared to rip it out. But before Deathbird could even touch Naruto, he rose up from his chair, drew closer, and placed his left hand around her throat. He then pushed Deathbird face first against the cell's right side wall, which did not crack at all, since the entire cell was made of adamantium. "Gah!" Deathbird exclaimed. But before she could do anything else, Naruto smashed her against the wall again. This time, return first. He then started holding her in that posture. When this happened, Deathbird began to struggle, attacking Naruto's arm with her claw-like nails and doing anything she could to get free of his grip. However, it proved ineffective. Naruto's grasp on Deathbird's throat was iron-tight, and nothing she did bothered him. She couldn't hurt him in the slightest. What is this primitive? Deathbird thought. She had only met a few people as strong as Naruto in her life. The first person who came to mind was the Sheer Imperial Guard's leader, the formidable Gladiator. Don't tell me he's as powerful as Gladiator? Deathbird thought. She was knocked out the instant Naruto spoke. He said, "Look at me." No commands were given. Then, before Deathbird knew it, she was following the command and looked at Naruto, who now had a cold, hardened expression on his face. "It seems you truly can't grasp the situation you are in, so I'll explain once more to you slowly. So perhaps you can come to understand it. You are not in charge here. Your title means nothing. Your power means nothing. You are my prisoner and I can do with you what I please. Your life is in my hands." Naruto offered his opinion. He slowly tightened his grasp on Deathbird's throat. "Now, do you understand things as they have been explained to you?" I said, "Do you understand me?" Naruto questioned again. His hold on Deathbird's throat became much firmer. The lack of oxygen caused black spots to form in her eyes. "Don't make me repeat myself again." "Why?" Deathbird managed to get out of her mouth. "Yes, what?" Naruto asked. "I understand you," Deathbird said. "I understand you what?" Naruto inquired. "Go on and say it." "What's my name?" "Naruto." "I understand you, Naruto," Deathbird said. Naruto responded, "You're goddamn right, you understand me." He then loosened his grip on Deathbird's throat, allowing her to fall to the ground, where she started gasping for oxygen. As she did so, Naruto gazed down at her, repulsed. "Pathetic," he said. "And you claim to be the heir to the throne of this sheer empire. If that is the case, then I worry for your civilization." He ended his sentence. Deathbird clenched her hands and gritted her teeth. I want nothing more than to rip Naruto apart, but she did not even attempt. She realized it was a fruitless exercise now. To think I'd meet such a formidable being on a nameless planet like this. Deathbird thought. No, wait, this is an opportunity. If I can persuade this great primitive warrior to join my side, I will be able to reclaim what is rightfully mine from my weak brother. Now the only thing is, how do I persuade him to join me? Deathbird frantically searched her brains for a means to gain Naruto's favor. Then one thought in particular came to her, causing her to smile slightly. Yes, that's it. Deathbird thought. She then proceeded to execute her plan. Crawling on her hands and knees, she approached Naruto. When she did, Naruto gazed down at Deathbird. What are you doing? He questioned her. Deathbird whispered, offering myself to you, O mighty warrior. What do you mean? Naruto inquired. He has no idea where Deathbird came from. As a part of our culture, we sheer are taught to marry other cultures in order to grow stronger. We are also taught to submit to those who prove themselves to be greater warriors than us. You Naruto von Regnum have met both qualifications. Thus I submit myself to you in mind and body, as per sheer law. For if I, a member of the royal family, does not follow our laws, then what fight do I have to rule my people? According to Deathbird, she gazed up at Naruto with a constricted submissive expression on her face. If you have no issues accepting me, then please go ahead. She was chatting. Naruto now understands what Deathbird is up to. She was attempting to seduce him. Although he knew what she was saying was true, and he recalled it about the sheer from his previous existence, he also knew Deathbird would never follow such traditions and norms unless it was beneficial to her. Because, aside from her anger issues, Deathbird's demeanor in his past life was clever and cruel, and she would attack on anyone who showed any vulnerability. That's why Naruto was attempting to prove her he didn't have any. But it appears she was still missing the moment. Nonetheless, he admires her determination. And now she's offering herself to him. This is a terrible idea, Naruto thought. Recalling the type of intergalactic Game of Thrones nonsense the sheer royal family gets into, and knowing that once he sticks his dick in Deathbird, he will be involved whether he wants to or not. Not to add that she's undeniably insane. But, for some reason, Naruto finds her even more attractive and wants her even more. So, Naruto murmured, oh fuck it. He's going to grab himself some Deathbird pussy. Picking up Deathbird, Naruto led her to the cell bed to give her exactly what she asked for. Slap, 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 ack, ack, ack. Slapping and screaming filled the jail as Naruto pounded Deathbird's pussy from behind. Naruto holds the alien warrior and royal up in the air. Her body had become limp several fucking rounds ago. No more. Stop, please, Deathbird wailed, implored. Naruto hasn't stopped fucking her since she offered herself to him. Naruto answered, your mouth says no, but your body says yes. Despite her complaints, Deathbird's pussy was sucking up his cock with gusto. You fucking bastard. I'll kill you, Deathbird exclaimed as Naruto fired another load at her. Deathbird responded by coming herself. As this happened, Naruto released Deathbird and let her fall face first onto the bed. So he might take a time to relish his post-but happiness. Deathbird saw this as an opportunity and attempted to creep away. But before she could get a few inches away from Naruto, she felt something hot and hard brush the entrance of her asshole. No, not my ass again, Deathbird exclaimed. Oh, come on, I know you like it the best when I pound your ass. Naruto gave an answer. No, Deathbird exclaimed in outrage. But Naruto disregarded her and started banging her ass. Feeling that banging her into submission was probably his best option for dealing with the Naramani royal. So that's what he's going to try. Deathbird has no idea. Her error. She had no idea who she was dealing with. So now she does. In every way. Naruto's pav. With a renewed smile on my face, I climbed out of Deathbird bed. The latter is still in it, coated with bodily fluids from head to toe, with an expression of utter joy on her face. Despite the sneer she is attempting to send my way. Which makes no sense because I simply gave her what she had asked for. It was her own fault for not being ready for what was to come. But that's what she gets for attempting to honeypot me. Which would never work for me in the first place, because pussy will never be Naruto's demise. Moving on. I used magic to clean myself up. Then Deathbird, since I am nothing if not a respectful lover. After I did this, I dressed and left her cell, which is held at my research facility in a pocket dimension that I built. Following this, I went to a meeting room where my Primarchs were waiting for me. I had ordered them to gather here and wait until I finished interrogating Deathbird so that I could tell them what I'd learned. When they saw me, they all smiled wetly. "What's wrong with all of you?" I inquired. "They heard you fucking the brains out of the hot bird avian-like prisoner, my emperor." Brainiac began to speak. "Oh." I pondered. "Huh? I didn't think either of us were particularly loud." However, my attention was diverted from the level of our shouts, so yeah. "My liege, I mean no disrespect, but was having sexual relations with the prisoner the wisest move?" I said for Katma. "Possibly not, but she offered in the first place and I don't regret my actions." I informed her. Especially given why she offered herself to me in the first place. I explained. I then utilized my telepathy to link to the minds of my Primarchs and communicate with them all I had learned from Deathbird's mind while I was with her earlier. Since I had more on my mind than impressing her with the reality of her predicament and turning her down when she offered. As I often say, business comes before pleasure. After Deathbird gave herself to me, all of my Primarchs became openly outraged. But they soon reined it in and rejected it, realizing I understood her plan from the moment she implemented it and then promptly turned the tables on her. "My emperor, please forgive my earlier statement," Katma responded. I waved her off. "It's fine. Just focus on the information I am sending you. There are several. The Sheer Empire's entire history, technology and scientific achievements, and status in the known galaxy. As well as information about the rest of the royal family. According to Deathbird, there are now just 3 others. Deken is the current emperor and a total fuckboy. Liliandra is Charles Xavier's alien sugar mother. Finally, there is Deken's adopted son, Gabriel Summers, aka Vulcan. So that jackass does exist in this realm, I reasoned. That's good to know. After that, I briefed my Primarchs about the Sheer military's capabilities. Specifically, the Sheer Imperial Guard and their centuries-old leader, one of the only guys in comics I knew who could rock a mohawk, and one of Marvel's many Superman parodies, Gladiator. That completes all of the information I received from Deathbird about her people and home. After that, I shared with my Primarchs the only other vital information I had obtained from Deathbird's mind. This was in reference to the other cosmic superpowers she knew of. Which are as follows. The Kree. The Skrull, who in this realm resembles their comic book versions rather than their MCU counterparts. That's good to know. Now I know I must carry out my preparations for the Skulls to avoid dealing with a Super Skrull or any secret invasion crap. Thanos territory. Galactus territory. Yes, Galactus has genuine territory. Which I consider to be both a good and a terrible thing. The Nova Empire. Finally, there is the Spartan Empire. Which leads me to question which version of Star-Lord will appear in this universe. The one from the MCU or the comics. In all honesty, I prefer the latter to the former. But it is just me. After relaying all of this knowledge to my Primarchs, I cut my telepathic connection with them and let them a few seconds to assimilate what they now knew. Wow, I knew the galaxy was a big place, but it seems I was limiting my imagination. Frag gave an explanation. Thaddeus said, "You can say that again, Frag. To think such mighty empires and beings who rule them exist." Ivy was moaning. That just means we must prepare even more for if and when the time comes that we must face them. Katma offered her opinion. Zod continued, Katma speaks the truth. Especially since it seems our emperor has already set his sights on the Sheer this Deathbird hails from. He went on. Am I right to assume that my emperor? You are Zod. I answered, but of course that will be several years from now. We are nowhere near ready to face the Sheer. They currently outperform us in all categories that count. But only for now. Well, that's all I needed to inform you all of. I'll be taking my leave now. I told you so. Oh, and if Deathbird should give you any trouble while I am gone, you have my permission to smack her around. I don't want her to think she can be cocky just because I'm not around. Yes, Emperor. All 5 of them agreed. One more thing. Zod, did the search you and the Doombots conducted at the site of Deathbird landing zone turn up anything? Zod responded, nothing at all, my Emperor, which is good. I don't want any sheer technology to come into the hands of anyone else on Earth. They wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. I said, okay. I then took my departure. I'm using a portal to get to my personal chambers in Castle Doom, where I quickly showered and changed into some clean clothes. I had a meeting arranged this morning. Once equipped, I returned to my office at the Lavian Consulate in New York. Checking the time right after I did, which read 8:50 a.m. This meant that I still had 10 minutes till my meeting began. It also meant I spent several hours fucking Deathbird. Ah well. Taking a seat in my recliner, I telepathically contacted Jessica to alert her that I had returned, since I informed her about my departure last night, in case I needed her to intervene with Susan. Although what we experienced last night was incredible, I am not delusional enough to believe I can trust her with half of the plans I have in place. At least, not yet. Last night was a positive first step toward making it a reality. The next 10 minutes went by swiftly. Then at 9 a.m., I heard a knock on my office door. King Naruto, your 9 o'clock appointment has arrived, Jessica announced from outside my door. Excellent. Please, send him in. It was my reply. Jessica answered, yes. She then opened the door, and my appointment entered my office. One Otto Octavius. After he finished, Jessica closed the door and Otto approached my desk. When he reached it, I stood up and extended my left hand, which he shook. Dr. Octavius, a pleasure to meet you. That was my reply. The same to you, King Naruto. Especially since I hear you're a scientist yourself. Otto agreed. That's who I am, I said. We then broke our handshakes and sat down. So I'm certainly curious as to why a man of your stature requested a meeting with a man like me, inquired Otto. Let's get right to business. I like it. Well, I heard about your work. Your plan to build a sustainable fusion reactor from some contacts of mine. I think it's a brilliant and wonderful idea, and I invited you here today to tell you I personally wish to fund the project. I shared my thoughts. Partially because I don't want this version of Otto to become Dr. Octopus, and partly because having control over his technology would be beneficial. In addition, I have the man's support. Truly? Otto questioned me. I nodded my head. Yes, I truly wish to fund your research. Because if you can make vision a reality, it can change the world as we know it. It could solve humanity's energy crisis and make the use of fossil fuels obsolete, not to mention how it could expand our knowledge of physics in general. To have the power of the sun in the palm of our hands. It would be glorious. Otto said, yes, exactly. Mr. Naruto, it's like you're reading my mind. Why, thank you, Doctor. I answered, but I'm not reading his genuine mind right now. Meta-knowledge wins out here. So in regards to my offer, I do have some stipulations. Namely that you and your wife relocate to Latveria to conduct your research and become teachers at the Werner Academy. I was chatting. Otto responded, I see, I'll have to discuss this with my wife. I completely understand. I said. We then had a few more discussions before wrapping off the meeting and sending Otto on his way. After he finished, I couldn't help but start singing the spectacular Spider-Man theme music. After my appointment with Otto, I completed some short work. That is, until I sensed Susan waking up as a result of the several surveillance spells I had placed throughout the embassy. As soon as I realized this, I stopped what I was doing and returned to my personal bedroom. Susan had fully awoken when I arrived and entered the room. I said, good morning. Susan responded, yeah, good morning, Naruto. She then used her left hand to hold back a yawn. You're up early. Yeah, I had an early morning meeting. The life of a monarch. That was my reply. Right, Susan responded. So about last night. I immediately responded, yes, I enjoyed it. I smiled smugly. Susan blushed lightly when she saw it. Which makes no sense given what she did to me last night with her mouth. She seems like a weirdo between the sheets. So this demonstrates what my father told me in my previous life to be accurate. Always keep an eye out for the silent ones, so did I. But that's not what I was going to speak on, it was Susan. I was going to ask you if what happened between us is alright. We're two consenting adults, so yeah. What happened between us was just fine. It was my response. No, I mean you're a king, Susan said. True, but I'm still a person. A person with wants and desires. And for the longest time for me you've been a subject in both those categories, Susan. I told her so. I moved over to her, softly grabbed her face in my hands, and then leaned down to kiss her lips. So there's no reason to fill that pretty and wonderfully intelligent head of yours with any unnecessary thoughts. It was my reply. Now, are we good? I inquired. Susan responded, yes. We are. Making her smile, I answered, glad to hear it. Susan got refreshed and put on her clothes from yesterday. After she finished, I led her to the dining hall for some brunch, which I had already prepared. While eating, we talked about a variety of topics. Susan ultimately finished breakfast and prepared to go. Well, I suppose I'll see you, Susan said. You certainly will, I said. I immediately gave Susan another kiss. Later, she left the embassy. After she left, I returned to my office and began studying my Reed Richards eradication plans to ensure they were completely and utterly faultless. I've taken Susan for myself because it's impossible to predict what he'll do if he finds out. Keeping her away of his useless grasp. I do not want or need to cope with a version of the Maker in this world. After I ensured that the plans were flawless, I made a few extra just in case. Because when it comes to Richards, I need to ensure that he is completely gone. There can be no mistakes when it comes to getting him out. Because if I give that bug an inch, he will take a mile. When my new strategy for dealing with Reed was complete, I sat back in my chair and took a brief break. I immediately alerted Jessica telepathically that I was leaving again. I opened a portal and stepped through it to reach Kamar Taj. I assumed since I was in New York, I'd go there, considering it was one of the areas that shaped me into the man I am now. Plus, I want to see my master, the Ancient One, and catch up. I ignored the looks from the Order's newer members as I closed my portal behind me. Everyone, it's okay. He can stay here. Which halted as soon as the Ancient One arrived into the courtyard and basically instructed everyone to stop. They went back to what they were doing. At the same time, I walked up to the Ancient One and bowed my head in respect. Master. Naruto, or maybe I should call you Dr. Doom now, said the Ancient One. Whatever you like, I said. So, how have you been? Like always, she said. Though it looks like the same can't be said for you. It can't, I answered. Can we move our conversation to a more private place? There are a lot of personal things I want to talk to you about. Of course, the Ancient One said. After that, she started to walk, and I followed her. In the end, we both ended ourselves sitting in a private meeting room. Once we were together, I made a teapot and 2 teacups with saucers. Tea? Yes, thank you, said the Ancient One. I made her a cup of tea and then made one for myself. After I finished, we both just sat in silence for a bit, savoring our beverages. Until the Old One spoke up again. It looks like you've been very busy since we last talked. Yes, I have, I said. I do have one of my kids, just like you said I would. His name is Christoph, and I would love for you to meet him, I added. In fact, I have a few people I want you to meet. 2 of them are young women who, if they are properly trained and cared for, could one day take your place as Sorcerer Supreme of Earth. Well, they do sound interesting. Now I want to meet them and your first child, the Ancient One said. Great, I said. Then please come to Latveria when you can. You are always welcome to visit my country. On that note, I was wondering if any members of the Order would like to teach at the Werner Academy? The school only has one magical teacher right now, and he's one of a kind, but he knows how to use his magic. Still, as things grow, the school and, by extension, the domain need more experienced users in the mystic arts. Especially when I don't have time to teach, except for individual and personal lessons. Like I have started to do with Christoph, since he turns out to be good at the mystical arts. It looks like I'll still be able to construct a tiny Naruto out of him. The Ancient One said, first, thank you for the invitation. I will accept it. Second, I will look into your request. But Naruto, the people I send to help you will only be there to teach and protect the innocent. They won't help you with any of your other plans, she stated. The Ancient One told me she knew about my plans, but I knew she would do that. That's fine. I wasn't going to ask them to get involved with those things anyway, I said. On that note, what do you think of my plans? I inquired. I looked the Ancient One right in the eyes when I did. Ignoring the slight tension that was in the air, I need an answer to this query. I don't think the Ancient One and the Order would stand up for me, but I can't be too careful. Depending on how she answers my inquiry, I may need to take action. I won't get in your way, she said without hesitation. Really? I asked. Yes, she said. Even though I've seen a lot of bloodshed because of the path you've chosen, I've also seen the bright future you make. That's why I'll never stand against you, unless you fall too far. I see. What do you think is too far? I asked. The Ancient One said, I'll leave that up to your imagination. Giving me a smirk. The air is no longer tense. That's good to know, I answered. Now, let's keep going. I have a gift for you, I said. Then I pulled a vial of the ambrosia serum out of my pocket. This serum will almost completely stop your aging process and give you a few other boosts. It will also keep you as you are now, so you won't have to draw energy from the dark dimension to stay that way. I want the Ancient One to know exactly what I'm saying. I want to keep her alive. She has been nice to me, and I care for her now. There's no way I'm going to let her fall on her sword simply because she saw it coming. Yeah, screw it. Even if the Ancient One doesn't die, Strange can still be amazing. And now she has a lot more people to select from to take her place if she ever falls. That future she imagined is no longer set in stone. Thank you, Naruto. Really, the Ancient One said. You're not going to ask me how I know about your link to the dark dimension. I said to her. I knew you wouldn't tell me no matter how I asked you, even if I had to use force. So I'll just take your gift, she said. I understand, I said. Good. That leaves only one thing left. If you let me, I would like to look at the Eye of Agamotto. It's one of the few items I know of that can hold the power of an infinity stone and let someone use it without being affected by the stone's natural powers. That is definitely something I will need. I have already resolved to acquire all the infinity stones so that Thanos and other crazy people can't get them. You may, said the Ancient One. I said, thank you. After that, we talked about a few more subjects before our chats ended. After that, I gave the Ancient One the ambrosia serum and then went back to the New York Latvian embassy. I went back to work, because bad people never get a break. April 28, 2008. Beep beep beep. When Lucia heard her alarm go off, she stretched out from beneath the blankets and switched it off. After that, she waited a few minutes to wake up, and she enjoyed lying in bed while she did. Lucia got out of bed and got ready for the day, even though she was fully awake. Which entailed cleaning up, getting dressed, and enjoying her morning coffee on the balcony of her flat. One that let her see all of Doomstadt, the capital of Latveria. A place that has altered a lot since Naruto became the country's king about 2 years ago. It had gotten better than Lucia could have ever dreamt, even in her wildest dreams. Image here, Doomstadt was now the bright light of Latveria. A city of promise and progress that made Lucia feel proud to live in every day. And also try to keep it going and developing, because she is the Prime Minister of Latveria. Lucia took her time finishing her cup of coffee. She then prepared herself a quick breakfast and left her flat to start her day. Naruto had given her 2 Doombots as bodyguards, and they went with her everywhere she went. Lucia's normal hovercar was waiting for her outside when she left her apartment building. Image here. Yes, a car that hovers. A vehicle that worked and moved thanks to anti-gravity technology. Naruto had told them to make it when he got back from his last trip to New York City in the US at the beginning of the month. He wanted to start cycling in Latveria of anything that used fossil fuels. Including cars. Lucia's car is one of the first ones to come off the line. The cockpit shield of the hovercar raised as Lucia walked over to it. Showing the Prime Minister's pilot, aide, and bodyguard. Yelena Belova. Natasha Romanoff is the younger sister of the head of the Irenes. Who was told by Natasha to work with Lucia. Naruto had asked her to get Lucia a bodyguard. When Natasha asked her people, Yelena was the first to say yes, and now the 2 women are here. Good morning, boss lady. Where are we going today? Yelena asked Lucia, who had gotten into the hovercar and put on her seatbelt. Lucia said, We have a lot to do today, Yelena. They had been dating for a month, so she was used to the younger woman's behavior by now. At first, Lucia didn't like it at all, but after Naruto told Lucia why he was going to do it, because he was going to start some of his more aggressive plans, she didn't complain anymore. Because she knew exactly how dangerous Naruto's extreme intentions may be. Understood, Yelena said. After that, the two of them left. The hovercar's cockpit shield went down. Yelena then placed it in gear, so to speak, and left. The two Doombots flew with their jets and followed them. The three finally got to their first stop, a big greenhouse building. Yelena and Lucia got in when the hovercar left, with the two Doombot bodyguards. They passed a lot of people working as they walked through the building. Some scientists are, and some aren't, until they finally got to an office. They found a Maya Hansen working inside, because she was in command of the whole greenhouse. Because it was the key to a project that Naruto had given her after she helped him finish his version of the Extremis serum. It was called Project Demeter. A scheme that called for using the Extremis serum to make crops that could grow in any kind of weather. Letting people grow food wherever they live in the world. In short, Project Demeter was a strategy to abolish hunger in the world. Also, it would give Latveria a regular and unlimited source of food if it ever needed it in the future. "How are you today, Dr. Hansen?" Lucia said, taking Maya's attention away from the holographic screen in front of her, which showed an article about Tony Stark, who is still missing. Tony's convoy was assaulted on their way back from a weapons test with the US military in Afghanistan back in February. Now that he was gone, they thought he was dead, which had made Maya nervous for the past few months. Even if Tony was a jerk, he was still the father of her child. Maya thought, a child he doesn't even know he had. She started to feel bad about not telling Tony about Maya. She promised herself that as soon as she found out he was okay, she would call him and tell him the truth about having a daughter. Letting the chips fall where they may. "Oh, I'm fine," Maya said quickly. "I'm sorry, was our meeting today?" "It is," Lucia said. Her eyes were drawn to what was on Maya's holographic screen. "But I can tell you're busy with other things, so we can set up a new date." "Thanks a lot. Also, I'm sorry," Maya said. "It's okay, Maya." "Really," Lucia said. "Your child's father is missing and is thought to be dead. It would be strange if you weren't a little disorganized about that. But since your work hasn't suffered, everything is fine," she said. Maya and Lucia promptly planned a new date to meet and talk about how Project Demeter was going after she did that. Then she and Yelena departed the building to finish their rounds for the day. Lorna Dane couldn't believe what she saw outside the window of the bus she was riding. Her eyes were darting back and forth. She too couldn't believe what was happening to her. Because she had only been sleeping on the streets 3 days ago. She ran away from home because she was sick of her aunt lying to her about where she came from. Who her biological father was, in particular. Because she had told them that Arnold, her mother's spouse, wasn't. But no matter how many times Lorna requested her aunt for her real father's name, she wouldn't give it to her. Even when she got powers, like the mutants she had heard about. That was the last straw for Laura, so she left to look for her father on her own. She quickly became homeless. That is, until a bunch of weird people came up to her and showed her skills similar to hers. They told her they could transport her to a safe place where her gifts would be accepted and she wouldn't have to hide. Lorna couldn't conceal it anyway because her hair was naturally green. She adored it, but it made it clear to everyone that she was unusual. But now that she was in his land, which she learned was called Latveria, she realized it wouldn't matter. She observed people with powers using them outside the bus windows she was on, and no one was staring at them with disgust or bothering them. Did she neglect to say that the bus was floating? Lorna said to herself, "This place is amazing." A few minutes after she did the hovering bus, it stopped in front of a big structure. "Okay, everyone out and inside," their driver replied. As their bus driver told them to, everyone on the bus, who was either kids like Lorna or teens, got off and went inside the building in front of them. After that, additional people came up to them and broke them up into even smaller groups. Until there was only Lorna left standing next to a boy her own age, who had blonde hair and skin that looked like it was tanned. The boy said, My name is Alex Summers, what's yours? Lorna Dane, she said. So, do you have any idea why they split us up from the others? A woman who was walking up to them replied, I can answer that. Getting both Lorna and Alex's attention. Do you both remember the medical checkup you had when you got to Latveria? They both nodded. They were transported to a hospital and given comprehensive medical checkups as soon as they got to the country. They also had a golden-like serum that everyone termed ambrosia in them. That wasn't just to check your health. We also took DNA samples from both of you and put them into our system to see if you have any relatives in the country. It turns out you do. What? Alex yelled. Do we have family? Lorna asked. Yes, you do. And if you both follow me, I'll show you the family members we've found for each of you. Both groups are very small, which is why you two were put together, the woman said. After that, she began to walk. Alex and Lorna were behind her. Both are nervous. Especially Lorna. Since she might be going to encounter the father she left home to discover, they went for a while till they came to a door. The woman unlocked it and went inside when they did. Lorna and Alex were behind her. They found themselves in a rec room with 3 other kids their age sitting at one of the tables. Who were Pietro, Wanda, and Scott? Alex yelled. His gaze fell on the final child in the room, who was a boy with brown hair and red sunglasses. His name is Scott Summers. Alex, Scott yelled, running up to him and giving him a hug. I thought you were dead, he said softly, as tears started to fall from his eyes. Me too, bro, Alex said. He was also crying. The 2 brothers lost track of time at their reunion. Pietro and Wanda came up to Lorna at the same time. I'm Lorna, Lorna said. Wanda said, I'm Wanda, Pietro, said Pietro. Looks like you're my sister, he said. It looks like we all have the same dad. Is he here? No, Wanda said. We don't even know who our father is. Making Lorna sad. Oh, she said softly. But it's still nice to meet you. If you want, we can be family, Wanda added. Yeah, what our sister said, said Pietro. Yeah, our sister, Lorna said under her breath, having a warm feeling in her chest. She might still not know who her father is, though. But at least she knows she's not the only one. And that's the best thing of all. United States of America, Kentucky, May 2, 2008. Get out of here, you dirty mutants. He is to blame. Come out, muties, if only he had paid attention. His family wouldn't be in risk right now if he had done that. Outside his house, there wouldn't be men with rifles and torches. Get out here right now, you disgusting freaks. His brothers and sisters wouldn't be wailing in the corner out of fear. And his dad wouldn't be pointing the family shotgun at the door to their residence, just waiting for the irate crowd outside to come in. He could shoot them and keep them safe. Samuel Guthrie contemplated these things and more as he stared through the closed blinds of one of the front windows of his house, watching as a throng of irate people stood in front of it. A bunch of guys who work for an organization called the Friends of Humanity, who detested and hunted mutants. He was one of them, along with many of his siblings. But their parents and even their siblings who didn't have powers didn't care that Sam and some of his other siblings did. They still loved them. Sam's parents always advised him and his siblings with powers not to use them in public. Sam broke this rule the other day. He saw a small girl jump out into the street and almost get hit by a truck when he was walking home from school. He saved her by using his powers, but after that, the looks he got made Sam feel like a monster. As soon as he arrived home, he informed his family everything that had transpired. They applauded him for saving that girl, but he couldn't help but see the horror in his parents' eyes. He understood why they looked that way now, just now. Sam whispered to himself, and it's all my fault. Maybe if I give myself, they'll let everyone else go, Sam said, gathering his strength to give up his life for his family. But before he could do anything, red beams came down from the sky and cut up the enraged crowd outside his house. The air that used to be full with screams became horribly quiet, along with the blood and body pieces that used to be on the clean ground. What's going on? Sam yelled, only to have his mom hit him in the head. Language, Samuel. He's right, honey. What just happened out there? Thomas Guthrie said. Then, shortly after that, a figure fell from the sky and landed exactly in front of the entrance to the Guthrie family house. The stranger then came up to the door and knocked on it softly, stunning the whole family. But that didn't last long, since the strange person outside knocked again, waking awake the Guthrie family from their lethargy. When this happened, Thomas slowly walked up to the front door and opened it. He then pointed the barrel of his shotgun at the person on the other side. "Who was Zod?" "Mr. Guthrie, that won't be necessary," Zod replied. "How do you know my name?" "Who are you?" Thomas said. "Zod is my name," Zod said. "And like some of your kids, I have special powers," he said. Zod then started to float in the air. "Did you save us?" Jay said. "Yes," Zod said. "And if you all come with me, I can take you to a place where men like the ones who just stood outside your house and hated you for a few small differences don't exist," he said. "What's the name of this place?" Thomas asked. "My home country is Latveria," Zod said. He smiled after he did it. "Mississippi, USA, ah," Irene Adler suddenly yelled at the top of her lungs. She was tossing and turning in bed. She finally started to flail around uncontrollably, but then she stopped. She was covered in sweat and was breathing heavily. She had just had one of the most powerful visions of her life. Because Irene is not a normal lady. No, she has the gift of prophetic dreams and visions. The one she just turned to was a signal person. Naruto von Regnum is a guy. Irene sat up in bed once her vision came back. As soon as she did that, the bedroom door opened and her daughter, Legal Ward, came in. Anna Marie is a 14-year-old goth girl, but most people call her Rogue. "Is everything okay, Ma?" Rogue asked Irene. "Yes, my dear," Irene said. "But I have to tell you that we are going on a trip." "What?" Rogue asked. "Why? And where?" Irene said, "Because going to this place will make sure that we both have a bright future. The place is called Latveria." She hoped her partner would understand why she made the choice. Because it might mean the difference between her life and death. Kuna, Afghanistan, May 5, 2008. As he navigated the tunnel in his armor, Tony halted upon observing Yinsen resting on a number of sacks, hemorrhaging. "Yinsen," Tony called out to his colleague. Similar to the leader of the 10 Rings, Wazar prepared to launch a rocket at Tony. A bullet penetrated the back of his head, exiting precisely between his eyes at the front. Both Tony and Yinsen observed Wazar's direction, coinciding with the moment his body made contact with the ground. Just outside the cave, several individuals clad in unusual armor and wielding unfamiliar weaponry descended from the sky using ropes, systematically eliminating all visible members of the 10 Rings. "Who are they?" Tony inquired. "I have no idea," Yinsen replied. As he executed the action, several of the unusual soldiers advanced into the tunnel in the direction of Tony and Yinsen. Assigning Tony to a protective role, he prepared his weapons exclusively for the soldiers who entered the cave to halt their advance. As one individual advanced, the others are aiming their weapons at Tony. "I am Master Chief John Shepard, representing the Latverian Defense Force," the individual who stepped forward stated promptly. "By decree of our king and sovereign, we have been dispatched to provide support to both Tony Stark and Ho Yinsen," he explained. "Mr. Stark, I kindly ask you to stand down. It is in everyone's best interest that my team does not resort to force." "How can you be certain it's me in the armor? A more pressing question is, how can we place our trust in anything you are saying?" Tony inquired. Upon doing so, John retrieved a phone from within his armor. He subsequently directed it towards Yinsen and Tony, presenting none other than Tony Ho on the screen. Tony," Yinsen exclaimed in complete astonishment. "Are you familiar with Yinsen?" Tony inquired. "She is my daughter," he acknowledged, although he had not encountered her in several years. He and Tony's mother grew distant over time. Subsequently, he established a new family and ceased all communication with either of them. After the tragic loss of his family and his subsequent capture, he made a solemn vow to himself to reconnect with Tony if he managed to escape alive. "Hello, Dad," Tony said. "I appreciate your time. I want to assure you that these individuals are here to assist you and Mr. Stark. You can place your trust in them," she stated. "Understood," Yinsen replied. "Tony, please, stand down," Yinsen urged. "Yinsen," Tony called out. Medics, report to the area immediately. John commanded over his communications device. The medical team promptly entered the cave and commenced treatment on Yinsen, with Tony choosing to place his trust in his friend's judgment. It became clear why Latveria was so recognizable. It was managed by the exceptionally talented Naruto von Regnum. This prompts Tony to contemplate the possibility of ascending to the throne of a nation. North Salem, New York, United States. A man seated in a wheelchair occupied an extended platform at the center of a spherical room. He wore a helmet equipped with wires that linked it to the terminal position directly in front of him. The individual is named Charles Francis Xavier, a highly skilled telepath residing on planet Earth. Additionally, a man who acquired his abilities through the activation of his X gene. Intrigued by this, Charles made the decision to devote his life to the study of individuals possessing X gene-based abilities, which he has classified as mutants. In addition to assisting individuals with similar experiences in mastering their abilities, he strives to create an environment where mutants can live freely according to their own desires, without inciting animosity or fear. These, along with various other factors, are the reasons behind his establishment of a school and the formation of a team called the X-Men. Currently, Charles is utilizing a device that enhances his already remarkable psychic abilities, facilitating the tracking and locating of mutants. The machine is named Cerebro. The rationale: in the past month, Charles has observed several mutants, along with their families, completely disappearing without a trace. Causing concern for the individual, it is imperative that any individuals actively targeting mutants and their families be addressed without delay. Charles was once again utilizing Cerebro to locate the missing mutants and their families. Despite his diligent efforts, he was unable to locate them. What might I be overlooking? Charles inquired of himself. Contemplating deeply, seeking to identify a resolution to the challenge at hand. At that moment, he remembered a specific detail. Following this, Charles took off his Cerebro helmet and exited the chamber. He proceeded through the corridors of the X-Men underground facilities to reach the elevator that would transport him back to the main mansion. This also served as the educational institution. Upon entering the elevator, he ascended and disembarked upon reaching his designated floor. Charles proceeded to navigate his wheelchair until he located the individual he was seeking. Logan. The individual is outdoors, reclining in a hammock. He ceased his actions the moment Xavier arrived in front of him. "What do you require, Chuck?" Logan inquired. "Some time ago, you mentioned that your daughter, along with several other mutants, is attending a school in the nation of Latveria, is that correct?" Charles inquired. Logan responded, "Yes. As I mentioned previously, Chuck, I am unable to discuss the specifics." The stipulation that Naruto established with Logan concerning his visits to Latveria to spend time with Laura was singular in nature, which would be promptly revoked should he breach the terms established. Logan recognized the gravity of the situation with Naruto, thus he maintained his adherence to the established boundaries. He provided Xavier with the information he was able to share. When he disclosed to the man that he had a daughter, "The details are not of my concern," Charles replied. "I would like to request your assistance in arranging a meeting between myself and the monarch of Latveria." "What is the reason for this?" Logan inquired. "As you are aware, several mutants and their families have gone missing, and this number continues to increase daily. I am currently not close to uncovering any leads regarding the cause. However, I believe that if the King of Latveria is an ally to mutants, he may be able to assist me in my investigation," Charles explained. "Evo." "Excuse me?" Charles inquired. "In Latveria, individuals like us are designated as Evo, which stands for Evolved Human," Logan clarified. "A term established by the monarch, Naruto von Regnum," he stated. "The individual you wish to connect with is Chuck, who is also eager to meet you. Does he?" Charles inquired. Logan acknowledged with a nod. "Indeed. I was instructed to arrange a meeting between the two of you as soon as you requested," Logan disclosed. "I understand," Charles responded. He contemplated how his meeting with Naruto von Regnum would unfold. He could only anticipate that it would be a productive endeavor. Location not specified. Gazing at the landscape before him, the individual known as Magneto was deep in contemplation. That was the moment he became aware of someone approaching him from behind. Turning, Magneto recognized his second-in-command and one of his most committed followers, Fabian Cortez. Fabian, Magneto contemplated. Magneto, sir, Fabian replied. He knelt and lowered his head to Magneto for a moment. Prior to elevating it, I have acquired the information you requested regarding the location of the missing mutants, he stated. Magneto and his followers have observed a significant increase in the number of missing mutants over the past month. Upon their actions, Magneto committed to uncovering the truth behind this matter. He refused to permit his second group to endure the indignities faced by his first. No further action will be taken. Magneto reflected, this will not happen again. Preparing his hands. Where are our missing brethren? Magneto inquired. We have traced them to a small Eastern European country that has been frequently mentioned in the news over the past few years. Latveria, Fabian stated. I understand, Magneto responded. Considering that yet another European nation was pursuing his people. Not on my watch, Magneto muttered. Fabian, please ready our forces. We are proceeding to Latveria. Yes, sir, Fabian responded. A smile graced his face, accompanied by an intense and almost reverent gleam in his eyes that Magneto overlooked. Undisclosed location. A man stood in a refined laboratory, facing a screen, his expression reflecting frustration. The individual in question appeared distinctly non-human. He possessed immaculate white skin, a striking red gem positioned at the center of his forehead, and his physique exhibited a metallic sheen in various regions. The individual in question is Nathaniel Essex, although he has been known by a different name for an extended period. Mr. Sinister. Due to specific circumstances he faced. Proceeding forward. Mr. Sinister's anger stemmed from the disappearance of several mutants he had been closely monitoring, including one that played a significant role in one of his most ambitious plans. A young individual named Scott Summers. For years, Sinister had been meticulously shaping Scott to align with his objectives, all without the boy's awareness. However, the situation was now at risk, as he was unable to locate any evidence of Scott's presence. Additionally, Sinister sensed that the telepathic suggestions he had embedded deep within Scott's mind had been extracted. Author's note. Indeed, that event occurred in the comics. Sinister's character is quite dreadful. This is unacceptable. Sinister exclaimed. Who is interfering with me? He inquired. Subsequently, after Sinister's actions, the computer terminal before him emitted a ping. Upon commencement, he began reviewing the results. He developed a search algorithm to ascertain the location of Scott and the individuals he was monitoring. Upon completing the review of his algorithm's results, Sinister couldn't suppress a smile. At this point, he possessed the most probable location of his subjects. A location known as Latveria. It is surprising that a third-world country would engage in my business, Sinister reflected. Given his lack of regard for Latveria. Inferior humans, Sinister declared. It is time for them to understand the consequences of obstructing Sinister. He stated. He found himself chuckling afterwards. Sinister was unaware of the turmoil he was about to bring upon himself. Latveria, Doomstad, May 8, 2008. Perspective of Naruto. With my holographic screen activated before me, I took a seat in my personal office located within Castle Doom. I am currently reviewing multiple reports from the past week that I had postponed, as I was engaged in personal projects within my laboratory facility. At this point, I am fully focused on my professional responsibilities. This is typically my approach to tasks. 1 week allocated for personal matters, followed by 1 week designated for business activities. Unless a significant event occurs during either time frame, it is effective for my needs. Additionally, I have the authority to oversee the process and establish the guidelines. It is indeed a privilege to hold the position of Emperor. As I reviewed the reports, I efficiently navigated through the more mundane and routine documents before progressing to the more engaging material. To begin, let's review the current status of Project Safe Haven. I implemented a project that I had been planning for some time upon my return from my last trip to the United States. The project entails identifying EVOs worldwide and facilitating their relocation to Latveria, along with, in certain instances, their families. Granting them citizenship in my country, while also enabling them to lead fulfilling lives and equipping them to harness their abilities effectively. Upon reviewing last week's report on the ongoing efforts of the projects, I found one section in particular to be quite intriguing. Zod's actions in rescuing Samuel Guthrie, known as Cannonball, along with his entire family from an aggressive mob of individuals identifying as the Friends of Humanity, are noteworthy. More akin to the pests of society, those uninformed and prejudiced individuals. I look forward to the opportunity to remove individuals of that nature from our world. Upon reviewing the report in its entirety, I noted that Zod successfully facilitated the relocation of the entire family to Latveria. Excellent. Having completed that report, I proceeded to the one outlining the status of the various scientific projects currently underway in the country. For instance, Project Demeter is being led by Dr. Hansen, in conjunction with the fusion reactor project led by the Octavius couple, who accepted my offer to work in Latveria prior to my departure from the US, and has been in the country since the beginning of April. The couple is gradually developing a deep affection for the location. I have observed it during my opportunities to engage in conversation with them. This brings me great satisfaction, since it indicates that the Octavius couple is nearly solidly in my support. Upon completing the report, I proceeded to the one addressing the production and distribution of adamantium and vibranium A in the country. Latveria now possesses abundant access to both metals. My successful development of the PIM particle formula has enabled me to utilize these particles to expand small quantities of both metals into substantial amounts, effectively addressing the needs of my country. In addition to my individual ones, having confirmed that everything in the report was in order, I proceeded to the next one. A list of names of EVOs who had arrived in Latveria was provided. It is one that I consistently consider, if for no other reason. I aim to determine whether I am familiar with the names of individuals referenced in the comics. The list I am currently reviewing contains 3 such names: Lorna Dane, Alex Summers, and ultimately Scott Summers. This means I now have Polaris, Havoc, and Cyclops supporting me. Excellent. Particularly concerning Lorna. Given her potential, she could reach a level of power comparable to that of her esteemed father, Magneto. However, Alex and Scott are certainly not to be underestimated. I noticed a notation next to Scott's name. He mentioned that he needed to have certain telepathic suggestions, which were deeply embedded in his subconscious, addressed during his checkup. I'll allow you to make one assumption regarding who placed them there. It appears that Sinister indeed exists in this reality, which likely indicates that Apocalypse aligns more closely with his comic book portrayal than with his live-action representation. I would appreciate a formal confirmation of that. I can consult with Sinister before making a final decision regarding his status. Given the circumstances, it is necessary for the biological butcher to be eliminated. Not only for the lives he has already taken but also for the actions he has directed towards Scott. All this occurred because he desired for him and Jean Grey to procreate and create a child capable of defeating Apocalypse on his behalf. Since he lacks the initiative to accomplish it independently. Unacceptable. Additionally, it appears that Xavier has already enlisted Jean Grey. This likely indicates that she and Scott will not be in a relationship. However, are you aware? I am interested to observe the outcome of Lorna's romantic situation. Considering the presence of both Havoc and Marco Diaz, I understand that it may not be appropriate to speculate on the romantic lives of young individuals, but as an enthusiastic supporter of their relationships, I find it difficult to restrain my curiosity. Particularly in the presence of individuals who were central to my preferred narratives in my past experiences. Nonetheless, upon reviewing the list of new EVO arrivals, I initiated a check to identify those requesting access to my country. What I am referring to is the individual or entity that was seeking travel authorization from various regions to Latveria. Since I assumed responsibility, it has essentially become non-existent, as I am not currently prepared to disclose the enhanced version of Latveria to the global audience. It seems that some individuals fail to comprehend the boundaries, as they persist in attempting to invade my privacy. The most significant entities are S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. The components are not connected and are concealed within S.H.I.E.L.D. It is evident that after Latveria has successfully thwarted all attempts at information gathering, both organizations should recognize the implications of this situation. However, that is not the case. They continue to persist. This is becoming increasingly frustrating. It may be appropriate to engage in a discussion with Fury. Consider this carefully. Returning to my primary focus. Upon reviewing the list of individuals interested in visiting Latveria, I was taken aback to find two specific names and corresponding images. Which was associated with Irene Adler, also known as Destiny, and a young girl named Anna Marie, who is referred to more frequently as Rogue. Leaning in, I scrutinized their pictures to confirm their identities, ensuring that my eyes were not misleading me. I observed that both Irene and Rogue appear just as they did in X-Men Evolution. This indicates that this universe includes Goth Rogue. Affirmative. Please understand my perspective. Regular Rogue is excellent. As an individual who was raised on X-Men Evolution, I find that the Goth version of Rogue resonates with me significantly. Indeed, that is the reason my first girlfriend in my past was a Goth individual. Enjoyable moments. I find myself questioning the motivations behind their desire to visit Latveria, particularly in the absence of Mystique. I am curious if Irene is indeed Nightcrawler's biological mother, similar to the portrayal in the comics. Considering they revised his origins prior to my passing in my previous life, I still find that somewhat unusual, but it is what it is. I have approved the travel plans for Irene and Rogue to Latveria. Given the significance of these two characters, I cannot allow them to elude my grasp. Rogue specifically. I am curious to know if we will have the opportunity to see Scott alongside Goth Rogue. I am currently experiencing a surge of productivity in my shipping processes. Upon approving the mother-daughter travel plans, I proceeded to the final report, which I consider to be the most significant. The destinies of Tony Stark and Johansson. Upon reviewing the report, I noted that both individuals were in stable condition prior to their transfer to the US military. I acknowledged this with a nod. I anticipated nothing short of excellence from the Spartans I dispatched to assist them. Indeed, I referred to Spartans. Upon my return from New York, I initiated the process of awakening them and guiding them into Latveria as a complete entity. I additionally presented the Primarchs. Initially, my team experienced some apprehension towards all of them. However, over the course of the past month, that tension has significantly diminished. Despite being genetically engineered superhuman warriors designed to serve me, even at the cost of their own lives, the Primarchs and Spartans fundamentally share commonalities with everyone else. Individuals possess their own emotions, aspirations, desires, and interests. As I have mentioned previously, had my intention been to create a cold and efficient army, I would have continued with the production of Doombots. However, I do not. I seek the highest quality, as products crafted from flesh and blood typically excel in many instances. As I concluded the reports, I reclined in my chair. It was only upon reviewing my inbox that I observed an email from Logan. He consistently refrains from doing so. It signifies that whatever he desired held significance. I reviewed the email he sent and discovered that he was attempting to arrange a meeting between me and Professor Charles Xavier. I have been anticipating this, particularly since I have been intentionally recruiting EVOs that he has been monitoring. I aimed to capture the man's attention. Additionally, assess the true extent of his abilities. This email in front of me provides the answer I was seeking. Despite Cerebro, Charles's abilities are insufficient to breach the telepathic barrier I have established over all of Latveria. This effectively generates misleading telepathic signatures, ensuring that my country appears entirely ordinary to any external telepathic observer. Proceeding forward, I have taken the initiative to respond to Logan's email. They paused abruptly when Brainiac interjected. "My Emperor, we are facing a code red situation," he informed me. When he did, I became entirely serious. A code red signifies a scenario in which the entire nation of Latveria is at risk. Could you please provide an update on the current situation? I inquired of Brainiac. Our satellite scans have detected a significant distortion within the electromagnetic spectrum approaching Latveria from the northeast. Could you please provide me with images of this distortion? I inquired. Yes, they are currently coming through, Brainiac responded. Immediately following his actions, multiple real-time images were displayed on my holographic screen, presenting the formidable Magneto, soaring through the air within his magnetic force fields, heading directly towards my country. Trailing closely behind him were multiple magnetic force fields, each containing a group of individuals, a few of whom I recognized. Emilia Vogt, the individual who would readily comply with Magneto's requests, Fabian Cortez, Finally, we arrive at Exodus. Another reason to propose that the apocalypse presented here will align more closely with the comics. However, setting that aside for the moment, the situation is quite evident. Magneto and his forces intend to initiate an assault on my country. It is probable that this is a result of the evos we have been introducing. Can you believe they found us so fast? I figured Magneto would show up eventually because I wanted to have a conversation with him, and I thought this would be the fastest way to do it. But never this quickly. Looks like I messed up this time. That's going to be the only one, though. Brainiac, can you put the whole country on red alert status? Can we get all the Doombots out of Magneto's way? Also, let the Primarchs and some Spartans know to meet me here. I placed my order. Let's give Brainiac a specific spot to check out. Of course, my Emperor, Brainiac responded. As soon as he did, I called forth my armor and gave my neck a good crack. I'm ready to show Magneto and his crew what happens when they step into my territory. Third-person point of view. As he came to a halt in the air, Magneto also paused the force field that was holding his followers in place. Because there was something in the way, especially folks. The characters we're talking about are Naruto in his armor, his Primarchs, and a bunch of Spartans. Who are you? Magneto was curious and asked them. I'm Naruto von Regnum. Just so you know, you're currently stepping into the territory of the ruler of this nation. Naruto responded. So, you've got two options in front of you. Why not just give up and walk away? Otherwise, things could get serious for you. Go ahead and pick what you want. Are you trying to give me orders, dictator? Magneto yelled out. I'm not a dictator, I'm more like an emperor. Welcome to my space. So, once more, it's time to make your choice, Magneto. Naruto responded. You know who I am. Sounds good, Magneto mentioned. Looks like we don't need to do any introductions. Alright, listen up, Naruto. Give back my people that you've taken, or we'll come and get them ourselves. Got it, Naruto said. So, you've decided on death, huh? He mentioned. Sounds good. Before he even had a chance to react, Naruto was already on the move, leaving Magneto in the dust. Once, he sucker punched the man, starting their fight. He had a look of shock on his face. Magneto was in total disbelief after getting punched right in the face. It's the same for his acolytes too. Before anyone could wrap their heads around what just went down, Naruto quickly grabbed Magneto's cape, gave him a spin, and flung him through the air. Far from his people, Naruto was chasing after him. He was looking for some quality one-on-one time with the master of magnetism. No, Lord Magneto, Fabian called out. He had this kind of wild look on his face. He was looking at the Primarchs and Spartans. Exodus chose to hit them all with a telepathic blast. But before he could, he needed to defend himself from one. Wait, what? Just a thought about Exodus. I didn't see that coming at all. But beyond that, he could feel it was just as powerful as his own psionic abilities. Wait, that can't be right. Just thinking about Exodus. He could easily count on his fingers how many psionics out there were strong enough to take him on in a fight, and as far as he knew, none of them were around. So, there was a new player stepping onto his field. But just as Exodus was about to ponder the situation further, he suddenly felt himself soaring through the air. A punch to his gut. Thaddeus's fist. He had a look of excitement on his face. He realized that Brainiac and his emperors were right about their intelligence. Magneto actually had a psionic in his group who was on his level. So, with that in mind, Naruto decided to have Thaddeus take him on and bring him down. He was getting ready to enjoy a job he found for himself. Now that he finally had an opponent who matched his level, he could give it his all. At last, someone who can keep up. Thaddeus was feeling excited. At that moment, Exodus looked like he just had a lightbulb moment. Oh, so you're the psionic who came after me? Exactly. Thaddeus chimed in. I go by Thaddeus. A Primarch who serves the one and only Emperor Naruto von Regnum. He gave an explanation. So, I've been told to give you one final opportunity to surrender by my lord. I'd appreciate it if you didn't. I won't back down. Exodus had something to say. He made an angry face. That just made Thaddeus smile even more. That sounds great. He got back to me. So, the battle of the psionics was underway. Thaddeus decided to take Exodus to a place where they could unwind, while Magneto's followers turned their full attention to the remaining Primarchs and the Spartans by their side. "You guys are no good," Fabian called out. "Are you going to stand against us? Go ahead and challenge the might of Ma." "Yeah, we do." Zod had something to say, cutting in on Fabian. "All right everyone, let's quiet down and pay attention. Our Emperor has asked us to offer you another opportunity to back down and surrender. If you do, your lives will stay just as they are, but if you don't, we'll take care of them without holding back. Go ahead and pick what you want," he mentioned. When he heard this, Fabian's whole face flushed with anger. What a total idiot. He let out a spit. Fabian lifted his arms toward Zod, gearing up to unleash his powers. Oh no. But just as he was about to act, Zod closed the gap in no time and thrust his right arm right through Fabian's chest, hitting his heart directly. Zod's arm was sticking out the back of Fabian, and he was holding the man's heart in his right hand. "Looks like you've made your choice," Zod said. He then squeezed his right hand and crushed Fabian's heart as if it were nothing. Zod then yanked his arm away from Cortez's chest, letting his body fall to the ground. As soon as it happened, Zod shifted his attention towards the other followers still with Magneto. "I'm done." Emilia just had to shout out for him to surrender the moment he did. Because she didn't want to die. The instant she laid eyes on Fabian's heart, her whole life played out in front of her like a movie. "Same here. Okay, I give up, just please don't hurt me." "Same here." Once Emilia spoke up, the rest of Magneto's followers surrendered one by one. "Great decision, everyone," Zod responded. "Spartans," he said with excitement. "Absolutely, Primarch Zod." The Spartans all yelled together. So, they headed over to Magneto's forces and started putting power-dampening cuffs on everyone. A little invention Naruto whipped up a while back for moments just like today. Before we knew it, the rest of Magneto's forces were all locked down. "Okay, so you guys are all familiar with the rest of the plan." Zod said something. "Move it," he said. "Absolutely, Primarch Zod." The Spartans answered together. So, they got all set to take the prisoners to a safe spot. Ivy and Thrag are there to keep an eye out and ensure no one gets any funny ideas. Zod and Karma decided to stick around to help Thaddeus and Naruto if they needed anything. But both Primarchs understood that their fellow leader, and especially their Emperor, wouldn't see it that way. Wow. 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 Crashing noises echoed around as Thaddeus and Exodus went head to head, going toe to toe with each other. They're both flying around using telekinesis and boosting their already enhanced strength with tactile telekinesis. As the two psionics went at it, they slammed their fists together once more, and Exodus threw a kick with his left foot. Thaddeus quickly floated backwards to dodge it. He quickly put up a telekinetic barrier just as Thaddeus sent a strong telekinetic blast his way. The attack hit Thaddeus' shield, and it held up just fine. Watching this, Exodus made his blast even stronger. He picked up a few big rocks from the ground and lifted them into the air. He transformed them into huge spears and launched them right at Thaddeus. Every rock spear hit his shield with a thud. When you put that together with the telekinetic blast, it was just enough to make it shatter. But before Thaddeus could get hurt, he quickly moved and dodged Exodus' attack. He then shot out beams of intense telekinetic energy from his eyes at Exodus. His attack landed right on target with his fellow psionic. Just so you know, the I-beam thing is real. Exodus is capable of pulling it off in the comics. If you're not convinced, just check it out on the Marvel Wiki. So, since Primarch Thaddeus has powers that match Exodus, he can do it as well. Even though the attack didn't cause any harm, Exodus was just taken aback for a moment. That was all Thaddeus needed to kick off a telepathic attack on Exodus's mind. Thaddeus broke through a few of Exodus' mental barriers, but the ancient psionic quickly got his act together and launched a counterattack. "You're 100 years too young to outsmart me in this battle of wits, you test tube creation." Exodus' argument. I caught a glimpse of some of Thaddeus' thoughts when he stepped into his mind. It's interesting to hear tough talk from someone who's not that different from me. Thaddeus chimed in. He also managed to catch a glimpse in Exodus' mind, just like his opponent did with him. That's how Thaddeus found out that Exodus got some upgrades centuries back. but I'm not sure by whom. It seems like that knowledge was tucked away pretty deep in his mind. You don't know what you're talking about. Exodus let out a loud roar right after Thaddeus finished speaking. He then increased his power, and Thaddeus matched him right back. The two jumped into an intense telepathic showdown. It eventually led their minds and spirits to a place that was just a blank void of colors. Can you believe you think you have the power to push me onto the astral plane? Exodus had something to say. I've got to give you credit for that, and this is where our fight wraps up. You just said exactly what I was thinking. Thaddeus chimed in. Right after he did, two giant ethereal hands appeared on either side of him and then quickly slammed together, trapping Thaddeus in between. Just a moment later, both of those ghostly hands were pushed back by a strong barrier that surrounded Thaddeus. So, after that went down, Thaddeus summoned a bunch of giant wolves and sent them after Exodus. His opponent stood still, not budging at all while the wolves crept closer and closer. Finally getting to him, they were then crushed in the palm of a hand, which belonged to a giant Exodus. So, who was it that reached out and tried to grab Thaddeus? Just as his hand was struck by a strong telekinetic blast. Come on, just let it go, kid. Exodus had something to say. Finally got Thaddeus with his other hand. You're in over your head. Even if you manage to win against me, there's no way you could take on my creator, because he is eternal. He mentioned. A creature that captures the essence of the word apocalypse. Just let it go. No way. Thaddeus chimed in. All right, sounds good. Exodus got back to us. He then wrapped his hand around Thaddeus, effectively wiping him out of existence on the astral plane. Got it. Is that everything you've got? At least that's what Exodus believed. That was until he heard Thaddeus's voice coming from behind him. When he did, he just turned around. As he went about his task, he encountered a massive figure that towered over him, but it wasn't about Thaddeus. No, it belonged to his creator and emperor. Naruto, huh? I have to say, you've kept me on my toes. But you know what? It's time to wrap this up. Thaddeus's voice came through the Naruto construct. Just when Exodus thought he could do something else, he suddenly found himself surrounded by Naruto's hands, getting squeezed tight. Oh no, this can't be happening. Exodus was in tears. He's giving it a shot but just can't seem to break free. Actually, it is possible. Thaddeus chimed in. By the way, even if what you're saying about your creator is true, I'm not worried at all. I stand by a man and serve even more. My emperor. Naruto from Regnum. Who even is this so-called apocalypse not ready for? He said something. So, Thaddeus wrapped up by crushing Exodus. Taking him down on the astral plane. Which basically ended up wrecking his mind. Once that was taken care of, Thaddeus made his way back to his real body. Ugh! Exodus let out some awful screams as he went on. Thaddeus just brushed aside any of Exodus's remaining mental defenses and went straight for it, absorbing all the man's knowledge. Turns out Exodus was right on the money. His creator was something else, like the apocalypse itself. Once Thaddeus gathered all the info he thought was important, he pulled himself out of what remained of Exodus's head. He grabbed the guy with his telekinesis, since he was all limp, and began flying back to his friends. He had a great time in his battle. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.